Like I said, we're going to go over Chapter 2 today. Instead of Chapter 1, we'll be installing Windows Server. And sort of just going through the chapter, we'll be talking about some of the stuff, so just grab your book and we'll walk through at the same time. It talks about planning Windows Server 2008 installation, work with the server core systems. Who's familiar with server core? Anybody? Are you okay? One. What's server core? It's basically like command line, Windows, no graphical user interface. So we get to play with that. So if you thought the days of Linux and all the command line stuff is gone, it's only beginning. The book will mainly be, or mostly be working with the graphical user interface. They will be introducing you to some of the core things though. The idea of the core is that there's no overhead, there's no graphical user interface, resources being used up, that you do all the administration either through command line on the server or remotely from a client having that interface, that graphical user interface. There will be a lot of commands in the chapter. Go through them, make notes of them, but don't get overly stressed about memorizing them because I don't have them memorized. It's something that you can look up and do if you need to. Okay, on page 38. Once an arduous and sometimes intimidating task, installing a Windows Server has become an easy, straightforward process with Windows Server 2008. And it really is. It's not that difficult. The process itself goes pretty quickly. The base operating system gets installed, and then after that you do the configuration using graphical commands for the first part at least. And then we just learn some of those other commands, the same equivalents for the command line. Planning the Windows Server 2008 installation. We want to be looking at it. Is this going to be our first server on our network? Installing a Windows Server 2008 in a new network that doesn't already have Windows servers operations is usually the most straightforward installation. And that's what we're going to be doing, is installing the first server on your network. You're going to end up making 2 servers for the class, and they will be interacting with each other. And then we plus have a Windows client installed, so ultimately you could be having 3 virtual machines running at any given time. For the first server on our network, if you remember, using our own little network address translation world of the 192.168.118 network, that's on your virtual machine environment. If we have the same configuration at home, then we're able to, keep that network with us. Because we're doing it that way, there's some activities that ask of, like pinging your partner and being able to connect to the room DNS, and you won't be able to do that. So we're going to have to modify some of these labs. I think overall, but my opinion at least, and we'll see how it works out in the long run, but having that flexibility of taking your whole network with you is more advantageous than getting the room set up that way, because you'll be spending time outside of class as well, and if you don't have to be locked into this classroom, so much the better. So, like I said, we might have to modify a couple of the labs. Also, when we go through the labs, it's asking you to type specific IP addresses in or whatever. It says, enter this information or what the instructor provides. I will be giving the or what the instructor supplies to you to match our virtual network world. Okay? These are some things I give up front, though, that you're probably going to want to write in the cover of your notebook or right at the top of your notes, because there's things that you're referencing back to all the time. What is my default gateway? What is my IP address scheme? What is the server names that I'm working with? So that, it's like, oh, what was that called again? Or what was that password? So, have a little card or something with all the basic information that you can refer to. So, any questions, like in general, just thinking about what we're doing? Oh, sure. Just one second then. Okay, any other questions that you would have? Okay. It goes through some more pages. If you want to read through that, that's fine. It talks about network protocols, how should I send an IP address, setting correct time zones and all that. And we actually get to do that. So they sort of walk you through of what you're going to be doing, and then they actually let you do it. It probably makes more sense once we start to do it. If you look on page 44, it shows the installation of Windows Server 2008. And we're going to do this together. I'll start the process and sort of just walk you through it. I'll be going through very slowly, so please stick with me because there are things that I will be telling you the answers for. So don't just rush ahead. I know it's easy if you've done this. In fact, they only have 8 steps. It's pages 44 and 45, so it's not a whole lot to the actual configuration of it. So it says power on the server. Well, before we can power on our server, we're doing in a virtual world, we need to build our server first. So we want to create a new virtual machine. And I usually use custom, not that I change anything. I just like seeing the settings. If you want to use typical, that's fine. And I click next. VMware Workstation 9 is the compatibility. That's the latest version. By the way, if you still have VMware Workstation 8 at home or on a laptop, you will have to upgrade to 9 in order to use this. It's sort of like backwards compatibility of Word or any other application. This is the new format, new whatever. If you need those files, I have them for you, including the product keys, so please get a hold of those. If you're running Mac, you need to run VMware Fusion 5. The VMware Fusion 4 will not work with these applications. But okay, I will install the operating system later as the choice that we're going to choose. We could choose the installer disk image file. VMware is pretty smart, and it says, hey, you're going to install Windows Server 2008. Asks for a couple of questions right up front, and then does the rest of the installation. Well, that's not going to follow along the steps in the book or in real life. If you put the physical CD in somewhere, you're not going to go through the steps. So we're going to make it as real as possible. We're going to build the machine, and then we're going to start with step 1. We're going to power on that machine. So we're going to build the machine. Click next. The guest operating system is going to be Microsoft Windows. And since I've just done this, again, it's already on version 2008. So make sure you choose off the drop-down list Windows Server 2008. I did, just like that. And I didn't have to do anything. That's usually what happened on those other computers as well. Okay. Are we good so far? Okay, click next. The virtual machine name can be Windows Server 2008. We are making 2 of them, so I don't know how you want to distinguish them. You can put a -1, a -2 behind them. This will be your first one. The name doesn't make any difference. You could actually name them both the same. As long as they're in different folders, it doesn't make any difference. But you want to distinguish them somehow. This is not that important. What will be important is the location. Do not use the default location. That's your local hard drive. One thing with the drive shield on or the smart shield that's on these computers, there won't be enough temporary space for it to install this, especially a server operating system. The ISO file is 1.5 gigs by itself, and then it ends up getting pretty big by the time we start doing things. And also, it does go away. If you turn off your computer, it goes away. Make sure you put it on your portable drive. My drive that I'm working with is my D drive. It's labeled data. And this is just how I organize my things. For backup purposes and everything, I like backing up my virtual machines separately. So I put them all in one folder. Once inside a folder, I usually break up my virtual machines by class. So I have Server 1, or Windows Server 1, or Server Admin, or whatever you want to call it. And then underneath there, I put all my virtual machines for that class. So right now I have 2 of them. I already have a Windows Server 2008, and I also have a Windows 7 client. We'll be doing this later on, so don't worry about what you have in there. So if you create a new Windows Server 1 folder, and then you want to make a new folder underneath there. To do that, click on the class name, and then make new folder. And then what you want to call your virtual machine, Windows Server 2008-1. I tried to make my folder name and the virtual machine name the same, so that I don't have Windows Server 2008 in a 2008-1 folder. It just gets really confusing. Which one am I looking for? And again, even for your notes, which machine is where, you might even list what is it called, so you know exactly where and what that server is called, so you can get to it. And then we click OK. So this is what it should look like on the new virtual machine name. How many of you have built more than 10 virtual machines since here at LTC? More than 5? More than 1? Okay. Never did one? Okay. So I know I'm going through slowly, and some of you are like, oh my word, I've done this a million times. Can't we just move on? Well, we're going to go through step by step anyway. So please be patient, because some people have not done as many times as you have. I click next on here, number of processors. The server really doesn't take a lot of processing. We think of servers as these huge, gigantic, processing, powerful things. Well, if they're an application server, that's what they do. They process applications. If it's a file server, it just says, here's a file for you. It doesn't even do the editing or anything. And at this point, it's a nothing server because we haven't enabled any services. Services are what makes a server a server. So there's really not a whole lot going on. We're going to keep with one processor, and it recommends 1 gig of RAM. In fact, we're going to keep the 1 gig of RAM. We could up it to 2. You know, there won't be a problem with that. But once we start using multiple servers, we have then 2 and then 4, maybe another gig for Windows 7 or whatever. We're at 5 gigs, 6 gigs, 7 gigs pretty easily and pretty quickly. And, we still have 16 gigs in here. That's fine. But if you have too much memory, too much swapping is going on. It really does degrade the performance. I was just playing with this the other day, and I just said, oh, let me put this on 4 gigs of RAM for the server. And it actually bogged the server down. And it just was really laggy, and I put it back down to 1, and it's just like, well, that's really quick. If we need to upgrade it, we will. It's pretty easy to do after the fact. I click next to the memory. Network address translation I will definitely keep in this case. I'm going to build it in my own network. So that NATed network, again, is, let me just draw on the board, is 192.168.118.0. And as we build these servers and workstations, and we put them all in that addressing scheme, as long as we're using VMware Workstation, it doesn't matter which machine we're on. So we could be at LTC and end up, using network address translation, which we're doing, to connect through LTC out to the internet. Or if we connect to home, we end up, using the same thing. Well, actually, I should just do it this way. Whether it's LTC or home, this stays the same. That never changes. The network address translation gets us out to whatever we're connected to. So again, Gordy's room, or in here, or the library, or home, your laptop, it's going to get to whatever network your other device is providing. At least that's in theory. So it seems to work. We're going to continue with that until we're proven otherwise. Okay, I'm just using the recommended options because I did choose I did choose Windows Server 2008. It's giving me the recommendations, so I'll just do that one, create a new virtual disk. It recommends SCSI for whatever reason, a 40 gigabyte drive. And I have been changing this recently to single files instead of multiple files. Just realize that if you put it as a single file, you won't be able to back it up to a FAT32 drive. You would only be able to back it up to another NTFS drive. So if you like backing up to like a USB drive that's FAT32, definitely make sure that you keep it as as multiple files, because that makes them all less than 2 gigs. What you're going to call the file for the disk is fine, and then I finally finish it. So I just built my computer. It's up to you. Keep it as multiple files if you want to back up to like a FAT drive. The only difference is that it's just that virtual disk file. So it's either one big one that ends up being, 4, 5, 6 gigs in size, or having 10 small ones, that are going to end up being in there. Either way, you only take up this amount of disk space as is required. It doesn't make it any bigger or smaller until you actually fill it up. Okay, so now I built my server. Now I want to put the CD in so I can boot it up and have it boot to the CD. I click on the CD DVD drive over here. And in fact, you could use the CD in the back of the book at this point. If you put it in your physical drive right now, that's what it's doing. It's going to automatically detect your physical drive. So if you really want to do that, you can do that. It's slower, but you can. In this case, we're going to use ISO images. Since I gave them to you, we can use them. And I want to browse for it. Windows Server 2008 ISO, wherever you stored that. And then I click OK. So now we're ready to start. It's saying power on your server. I'm going to power on the virtual machine. Step number 1, page 44. I'm going to switch my screen to Control-Alt-Enter. Let me wait for it to boot up. If I do get ahead of you, please stop me and say, hey, I'm not at that screen yet. Otherwise, I'm just going to sort of keep going, assuming that you're sort of still there. So please stop me, though, if I am getting too far ahead. The language, time and currency formats, and keyboard are all US and English, so that is fine by default. And then you kind of get one big button, Install Now. You click Install Now. It's asking you for the product key. We do not need to use the product key. We can get it out to 120 days, and that should be enough for the semester. If not, we just rebuild it when we need to. So there's ways of extending the evaluation period out to 120 days, and we should be okay with doing that. So I don't need to automatically activate Windows when I'm done because I don't have a product key to activate. So I'm going to uncheck that and then click Next. By the way, you can put a product key in here if you have one. You can go up to DreamSpark, the academic program. You can get a Windows Server 2008 product key and put that in there. And so you don't have to worry about the reactivation and the extending the keys and all that kind of stuff. And you know, once you get rid of this virtual machine, you can install it on another machine. So you're not losing it for good. It's not going to require that because some people can't get into their accounts or they don't want to activate it or whatever. So I don't want to spend the time on that part. But feel free to do it if you want to. I'm clicking Next on here. Do you want to enter the product key now? No, I do not. And then we let it do its thing. Now it's coming up to different Windows Server versions. It has two different types of installs, the full install and the server core install. The full install gives it the whole graphical user interface, the stuff that we normally work with, the stuff that looks like Windows 7. And then there's the core, which you install it. It does a lot of the same things, but doesn't install that graphical user interface. You end up with a blue screen with a text window box, and it's kind of command prompt-ish. And that's pretty much all you get. And we get to do that today, just not right now. We'll do this one first. We'll do the full install. Now we have standard, enterprise, or data center versions. You know, go ahead and read through the chapter. It talks about the differences in there. Everything that we're doing in class is using enterprise. That's the standard. That's what most companies use. The standard is pretty limited for a very, very small office, home office environment. Really doesn't have all the features and functions that we need to do. And then data center is kind of the other extreme, the mega giant size data center where we work with the very, very high-end things. Most companies that you're ever going to work with is when using enterprise. It's just what they are going to be using. It does make you choose this checkbox on the bottom that you can just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to install the data center. Well, I have selected the edition that I have purchased, So it's just confirming, yes, you purchased the enterprise one, so that's what you're the license for, and so that's what you can use it for. Evaluation purposes, it doesn't make any difference. And then I click next. It does have the license terms. They're just not saying that, okay, you bought it, it is yours. You are actually purchasing a license to use it, and this is what it's saying of what you can and cannot do. I'll just scroll through here, and then you can go back to the video later on and scroll through it slowly and pause it so you can read all of it, I'm sure. And then you click I accept. We can upgrade an existing server, keep your files, settings, programs. I would not normally suggest upgrading even if you could. We can't upgrade now because we don't have an existing operating system. But upgrading, especially server software, you really want to be installing that on a new server. Going from server 2003 to 2008, there's enough changes, and you don't want that underlying stuff still hanging out there. The servers these days, you buy the server, you put the new operating system on it, and then any data on here you're going to migrate over to their users, using Active Directory stuff, data, or whatever. Doing upgrades, just not very common, but you do have that option if you don't have that kind of budget or whatever. We only have the option to do custom because we don't have existing files, but install a clean copy of Windows. And that's what we want to do. We're starting from scratch. Most servers have multiple drives in them, like whole drive arrays and different partitions and all that. We only have a single one, so we only have one to work with, but we normally install it on disk 0, which is your first disk. Computers always start numbering things with 0. 0 is a number. Why waste it? It does confuse people. That's my IDE controller 0. How does that work? They do. 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's your first drive is disk 0. You may need to initialize it depending on what your hardware does, especially RAID drivers, but it's going to tell you to do that. We should be fine. And now it just does its thing. If you've done Windows 7, it looks exactly like a Windows 7 installation. It copies all the files from the media, which is an ISO file, over to our server. It expands the files, so it can be used, and then it installs the features, then does the updates, and then does the completion. This is as fun as this is to watch. I know it's early, but this may be a good time for a break because this can take a while of just doing its copying and things. So we'll come back and finish this up. Okay, continuing on. The installation didn't take that long, 10-15 minutes at most. And you finally get to the screen. It says the user's password must be changed before logging on for the first time. By the way, we just did steps 1 through 6 on page 44. We're on page 45. In the next window, it says enter the password 01 with a capital P. In fact, we're going to do that. PASSWORD 01, PASSWORD 01. If you didn't match them, they will tell you that. Capital PASSWORD 01. It's on page 45 in the book if you're following that way. This would be one of those things that you might want to write down. 7 days from now is a long time, and I can't quite remember what I used for the password. May be a thought or a situation next week. So a little card, sheet, notebook, whatever, so for this server. And the password's been changed, you click OK. Yes? No, it does not matter. You, in fact, can type any password that you want in. However, I would not be able to help you. So if you come next week and you say, oh, Paul, what was our password we did last week? I can say capital PASSWORD 01, and then your response would be, oh, but I didn't use that one. And then I would say, 20 minutes, you can reinstall it, not a problem. So, okay. Yes, you can use any password that you want. Just be aware of which server has which password then, and when you're trying to log back in, keeping things the same. By the way, we are all in our little silos with our network address translation. Nobody can access your server. There is no way for any of us to actually get into your netted world to mess with your servers or your clients and that kind of stuff. Well, there are ways with port forwarding, but we're not there, so you're safe. Click OK where everything's been changed. You have a couple things flash up real quick. Preparing your desktop is the last one. And it automatically launches the initial configuration tasks. And we will be going through these, but actually the server is installed at this point. It is up and running. It's a full functioning operating system. I can close this window, and I can see that I have a start button, and I have control panel, administrative tools, and so on. By the way, after I close the initial setup screen, it also brings up Server Manager automatically because that's thinking what you're going to be doing is managing the server. I'm going to close both of those this first time. This is an extra step, not in the book. It's installing VMware tools because right now my mouse, my screen resolution and my mouse and interaction, that kind of stuff is a little bit limited. I can do some things, but just making things more efficient is by installing VMware tools. To do that, you go up to the menu if you have it hidden or somewhere like that. Go to VM, and you want to install VMware tools. By the way, if you have any banners across the bottom, like, oh, I'm finished, or, click here, you can close all those if you want. Click Install to install the VMware tools. So I click Install. Yours came up what? Like this? Yes. Yep, you're ahead of me. So run the setup program. And let it do its thing. At the end of VMware Tools installation, it's going to make you reboot, so we're going to come back to that initial installation screen, initial setup screen anyway. And that's pretty much, that's all that's to it. I click Next, Next, and then Install. Typical. Yep, choose Typical. Sorry I didn't point that out. I haven't ever done anything fancy with the tools part. Let it do its defaults. One of the nicer things that VMware Tools does is make the resolution nicer and fills up the screen. If you do the Control-Alt-Enter to make your virtual machine full screen, it finishes it that way. You click Finish, and it wants to restart. By the way, if you still have this menu across the top, and if you like it or don't like it, or I should say if you don't like it, the little pin up in the upper left-hand corner, that's what makes that stay on all the time. And I typically don't like it. It's sort of in the way for me. And so I push the little pin up in the corner if you have it full screen, and then it hides it. If I ever need the menus, all I have to do is hover up to it and it comes down. It's very rarely that I need to use the menus, and so it's fine. Okay, once to restart my computer, I click Yes. And then we get to the post-installation tasks. We can start reading through those on page 45. We want to activate Windows, which we're actually not going to do, but set the correct date and time zone, assign a static IP address, give it a computer name, work with the automatic updates, download and install any updates, and then configure roles and features. Those are things that we do afterwards. We're not going to do all of those, but some of the basic things we will, starting on page 46. Are your notes going okay? Am I going too fast, too slow? Just right? Okay. Okay. Yeah. We'll be able to catch you up. You'll be able to get the server starting to install, and then probably be able to catch up. Some of these next steps aren't that difficult. They kind of walk you right through this whole process. I come to this screen, Control-Delete to log on. If you remember virtual machines, Control-Delete. Any virtual world is replaced with a Control-Alt-Insert. So I'm afraid this is going to mess you up. So you're going to go on Industry and be hitting Control-Insert on everything, and it's not going to work because it says Control-Delete. But that's where we're at. So please do hit Control-Alt-Insert anytime you see the Control-Delete in a virtual world. So Control-Alt-Insert brings me, oops, I have to be in the virtual machine. Control-Alt-Insert will bring you to the actual login screen. It does eventually work, but sometimes it'll trigger your host first, and then you have to close your host, and then it brings it into it. So yes, it does do that. Just a little bit cleaner and more straightforward. Just remember, if it asks for Control-Alt-Delete, do Control-Alt-Insert in the virtual machine. Our password, anybody forget their password already? Password with a capital P, 01 at the end, except for Harris, and you type in whatever you put in. You don't have an insert key? Laptops have insert keys. Yes, on the Mac, there's a way of key combination, something, I don't know, we could look it up, try to figure it out. But the other way, which is a good point to point out anyways, if you really hate the Control-Insert thing, there should be a menu item up on top under VM to send a Control-Alt-Delete. So you can always do the menu thing, but that's not going to be real life either. You're not going to have a send Control-Delete on a real physical server. So, okay, kind of going down the list. The very first thing, it says set time zone. So activity 2-2, set the date, time, and time zone. So if necessary, log onto your server as administrator. And if it doesn't appear, you can type in OOBE, which stands for out-of-box experience. That's very intuitive, isn't it? Mark it down, highlight something. But anyways, under the computer information, click the time zone. And that's what we're going to do is click time zone. And this is where you can change the different things. Change the time zone. And so we click the button for change the time zone. And it defaults out to Pacific time, since that's where Microsoft exists, in Redmond, Washington. We are in Central Time, not Central America. And automatically should adjust for daylight savings time. Trying to think if there's anything else we need to change on here. If we do need to change the time, date and time, it is Thursday, January 24th, 9:06 a.m. Looks good. But if it's way off for whatever reason, you can click the change date and time right on here as well. Under additional clocks, we can see what those are. Where you can tell Windows display a time in other time zones. If you want to do that for hovering it, I'll just show it real quick. Say you work with another company that's in, I don't know. Let's do someplace. Moscow. There we go. In Moscow. Enter the computer, the display name. This is not required in activity, by the way, so don't get, if you're saying, what is he talking about? This is just bonus material. So here's Moscow, and I can click apply. We'll stay in here for right now. If I hover down in the right-hand corner, you can now see local time and Moscow time. So it does go away, but if it's just like, hey, I need a phone call to those guys, and it's just, okay, it's 6 o'clock at night, that's still reasonable to call them, so you can. Let's see, it talks about internet time. Click on the internet tab, internet time tab. By default, Windows Server 2008 synchronized with time.windows.com. If you want to change it to something else, you can. Change the settings. And they default to either Windows, time.windows.com, or any of the NIST.gov sites. If you want to click Update Now, the clock was successfully synchronized. So that's a good sign. That means you're connecting, going out to the internet, and actually getting good time. There have been times in the past that it just did not synchronize. You know, you had Windows updates automatically, but it seems to be working. Okay, click OK on the date and time, and I have it all set. The next step, activity 2-3, is setting a static IP address. Right now, it's set up to just basically use DHCP or a random address, and that's not good for a server. Every time you turn it on, you don't want to be guessing what the IP address is. You always have static IP addresses for servers and printers and those kinds of devices. So activity 2-3, if necessary, log onto your server. Under computer, configure the network. So we're configuring networking. Right-click on local area connections. Not sure what you do. Do you have a right-click on the Mac? Okay. Right-click on properties. And now it's just like regular Windows. You know, the same XP, 7, whatever you've been using with forever. So it does say TCP/IP versions 4 and 6, but we're just reconfiguring TCP/IP version 4. So if I go under TCP/IP version 4 and click on properties for it, it's saying obtain automatically right now. So again, it's going to be a random address. I think our netting world gives us like 118.128 to begin with, and we want it to be very consistent. So it says use the following IP address, and the top of page 48 sort of walks you through there. It says use this information or from your instructor. So this is the or your instructor part. Your IP address, because it's part of your little netted world, your own little world, we cannot all use the same IP address. They're not going to conflict because we're in our own separate areas. So they're all going to be, oh, gotta hit the numlock, 192.168.118, because that's our environment. And for this server, we're going to be giving it an IP address of 210. The default subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0, which we are going to keep the same. And then the default gateway, the gateway is how we get off of our network. We're using VMware's Workstation's default gateway, which is 192.168.118.2. Subnet mask, default gateways, and even DNS information are the same for all the computers on the network, which is also going to be .2 for all the devices. Later on, we will be installing DNS on a server, and then we'll be changing all of our DNS configurations for different devices to be pointing to the server DNS instead of the network's DNS. Does that make sense? No? Yeah? Okay. So anywhere, just letting you know, it talks about XX quite a bit in the labs. So XX is your student number. We're going to assume that everybody's student number is 10. So anywhere you see an XX in the book, put 10. But then it still has to match the rest of the network addressing. Okay, when you're done with this, does everybody have this information? Make sure I do this right. 192.168.118.210. 192.168.118.2. Click OK, and then click Close. That's basically going to reconfigure your IP address right then and there. Let's check it out. I can go to Start and go to a command prompt, ipconfig, and it is 192.168.118.210. Again, if you're keeping a little chart or in your electronic documentation or written documentation, IP address, the whole IP address configuration, and what server you're working with and password. Again, keep that sort of together. Kind of making sure that we do work. Let's try pinging something. Google responds to pings. So hopefully we get a reply, and we do. So since it resolves the name, I know my DNS is working, and since I can ping, I know that my default gateway is working. So I know that I have a good working network connected server at this point. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Not fast enough? Just right? Okay. Big porch, yeah. In order for this to be working on on personal computers or home computers, your VMware Workstation or VMware Fusion has to be set up with the same NATing parameters, because when you install VMware Workstation, it just makes up its own NATing, and everybody's different. I would think it'd be consistent across the board every time you install it, but if you install it on 2 different computers, they'll come up with different NATings. I don't know. So make sure that's all set the same. In Fusion, I'm not sure where the setting would be, but on VMware Workstation, so this would be important for you to do this at home, is under Edit Virtual Network Editor. Did you find that at all? Now the classroom and Gordy's room is also done already, so you don't have to worry about doing this ever here. This is only on future installations, on your own computers, because we've already configured these here. It's under Network Address Translation. I don't think that's it. There should actually be a network editor. In fact, you don't have to worry about that right now, because we really don't have to get anywhere at this point, and then maybe during break I can take a look at it. But I will walk you through the rest of these, so if everybody's watching, please pay attention and take notes on this as well. So under Network Address Translation, these are my configuration settings for it. This is what you have to change at the bottom, is the subnet IP address. This is the number that's going to be changing randomly when you install VMware Workstation or VMware Fusion. They have to be 118, obviously, in order to match our network environment. So I'm going to have all these servers and clients using a 118 network. You better make sure you're providing a 118 network, otherwise you'll never get off of that network. Things inside of it will work, but you won't be able to interact with anything else. So we'll find it on there. When you do it at home, when you install VMware Workstation, this has nothing to do with this specific virtual machine. It's sort of like going into Microsoft Word and changing my auto save feature or function. It doesn't do anything with the document. It only has to deal with the application itself. And this is an application setting, not a virtual machine setting. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's a virtual machine application setting, VMware Workstation application setting, not a specific VM setting, a virtual machine setting. So I can take this virtual machine and put it anywhere, and it's going to pick up the network that VMware Workstation on that computer is configured for. That's why all of our computers on all of our homes and all of our personal computers have to match. And how you do that is on at least VMware Workstation. Fusion might be a little bit different. On the menus, you go to Edit, Virtual Network Editor. And there's lots of things we can do in here. There's all kinds of really, really cool things you can do. It comes up with default ones. One is bridged, which means you're part of the physical network that you're on. Host only is just your computers inside are talking to each other, and there is no outside communication. And then there's network address translation, which is what we're using. So I have my own little private network. We each have our own little private network, but We're going to translate our addresses out to real live IP addresses so we can still get out to the internet. We're really protective stuff coming in, but we can still go out and get out. When we have network address translation selected, this is the number that we have to change. Nothing else. It's always 192.168. It's just this third octet could be 123, 112, 57. It really could be anything. The reason you chose 118 is because it doesn't conflict with anything. A lot of home devices are like 192.168.50 or 192.168.1. There's some that are 192.168.100, and we figured that 118 would be pretty safe. In addition, it's halfway between L119 and L117. So as they compromise. Okay, get that? Okay, so hopefully you're pinging. If not, it's nothing critical because the stuff we're working on the servers right now, we're just logging onto the physical server, making changes. So whether you can get out to the internet or not a huge deal right at this moment. Okay, moving along. Our next step is activity 2-5, changing the computer name and work group. So right now, if we take a look at our computer name, it is WinWMG9DBX8MBP or whatever, and yours is probably different. Not a very descriptive server name. If we're trying to use server names to connect to different things, I would hate to be typing that in all the time. So we're going to be changing that. So provide computer name and domain information. So I click on there. And things I want to do is change. By the way, this is the same window pretty much all the way back from XP. And people always type their computer name in here because that's the first thing that you see. Well, that's not the computer name. That is the computer description. Like, this is my server that's found on the 3rd floor. That's a description. The name is done down here. To rename this computer, changes domains, click change, and that's what we're doing. So we're renaming our computer, and it says name it Server XX. What is your student number? 10. So you'll be having Server 10. In the work group box, it wants us to change it from the default work group to add config class, which is AD or Active Directory Configuration class. I didn't make it up. Obviously, the author thought that was a good name. Active Directory Configuration class. That's the name of the book. Which is 10. Every student number is 10. Because we're on different networks. If we were sharing a network, which the book is sort of assuming that we're just in one big classroom, they would have to be different. Same with IP addresses. That's why it says a student number, and so on and so forth. Which, by the way, wouldn't really work out very well. I guess in the classroom it does. But in a larger organization, you have 2XX. If I have, 60 students, I'd have an IP address of 100.260, and that doesn't work. So you can only have a class of 55, I guess, 255. But we're all in our own little world, so it doesn't make a difference. So my computer name is Server 10. My workgroup is AD config class, and I click OK. Welcome to the AD config class workgroup, and you must restart to apply your changes. Changing your computer name is actually pretty significant. It's what's being broadcast out on the network to other people and shares, so it isn't something that you can just change on the fly. Same thing with changing workgroups. It's a pretty fundamental core part of how it's communicating across the network. Oh, I missed that button. I thought I clicked restart already. And I do a Control-Delete again, or in this case, Control-Alt-Insert. And it's password, capital P01. So as you can see, we are going pretty much straight down the list, and this is how you would be syncing with Server. They've done a really, really nice job of walking you through this. By the way, if you ever get tired of this screen and you just don't want it up here because you keep popping up, eventually you're going to be choosing Do Not Show This Window at Logon, but it's going to keep doing that forever until you do close that. The next step is to enable automatic updates, and what is activity 2-6 on the bottom page 49, really the top of page 50. We want to click Enable the Automatic Updating and Feedback button. Click the arrow next to Manually Configure the settings. And right now we can see some of the settings here if we're going to manually configure this, and we're just following the steps in the book. Step number 4, it says under Windows Automatic Update, click Change the Settings. So automatic updating, we're going to change the settings because right now it's not configured. I want to change the settings, and this is the regular Windows update screen that you've seen forever. Click the Download Updates, but let me choose whether to install them or not. Download the updates, but let me choose. Why am I not choosing Install Updates automatically? Yeah, this is your server. This is running your company. Do you want somebody else deciding when and if you should have an update and what that update does? Probably not. What's that? The server's down. Yeah, last night I did all these updates for you. Just, yes, download them so they're ready to be installed and tell me about them. And so when I click install, I don't have to do that whole, waiting for the downloads to happen or whatever, so I can apply them very quickly, but I still get to choose. There are times that you do not want to install even the recommended updates or even the critical updates. You have a lot of stuff that's interacting with this. You better make sure that that update doesn't break something else, and that has been known to happen. There's advantages for updates. They can take care of security patches pretty quickly, especially if a new virus rolls out or some security breach. The other side happens just as often, though, where all of a sudden your major enterprise system goes down because it's not compatible with that security patch or software update or whatever. It's never a good idea to have a server update automatically all on its own. Just letting you know. Okay, check the other checkboxes on the bottom on step 6. It says include the recommended updates for when downloading, installing, and notifying. All that means is it's going to download those updates automatically. So as soon as it finds them, it is going to download all of them, including recommended updates, not just the important ones or critical ones. But it's still not going to install anything. That's based on up here. And that's fine, so go ahead and click OK. The next thing is when under Windows Error Reporting, click the Change buttons, the Change Settings button, and these are the options that you have. You can leave this option as is. What it says, ask me about sending reports every time an error occurs. Or you could go to one extreme, yes, automatically send detailed reports, notify me if there are possible solutions to the problem, or don't do anything. I don't want to participate, and don't ask me. It's kind of extreme, but okay. Just leave me alone. I'll take care of it. But if you get an error, sometimes you might want to say, I want to send it to Microsoft. I've done that for years, and no one's ever contacted me. It's like, I'm sorry you had this problem, or most of the time, if it does find a solution, it says unknown. I haven't gotten real great feedback when I've submitted things, but I'm still thinking it goes into their database and their system, and hopefully resolves through a service pack later on. So that is the default, though. Just ask me, do you want to send this report or not to Microsoft? We'll click OK. Let's see. Oh, in fact, it actually says, for the lab purposes, though, select Do Not Participate. So I will change that to match the book. Sorry. This is what we normally use in an enterprise environment, ask me, but for the lab, I forgot that they're saying don't worry about it. That's the wrong one. No wonder I skipped ahead. Change the assessment. Ask me for this one and the custom experience. That's the one. No, I do not want to participate. Thank you. Now I'm jumping around. I need to have a bookmark here. Okay, going back. Sorry for the confusion. Windows error reporting really doesn't matter because whether you participate or not, but the default is ask me about sending reports. If we get an error in class, we most likely won't be sending a report, but still keep that one. So that was correct the first time that I spoke. I misspoke after that, sorry. The customer experience, when you can help improve Windows Server by providing anonymous usage information. So this is ongoing, not just the error reporting part. This is how are you using it, what are you using it for, how long are you using it, how many people, that kind of stuff. It's anonymous, so it's not being like, oh, Paul is doing this, and oh, let me talk Paul's light. Does that really match this? And it's not a checking up on you. It is really gathering. Boy, they're using this feature all the time, and you know that cool new feature we built into it? Nobody's using it. Well, let's get rid of that feature then, or let's see how we can improve it so people use it. So it really is that. And it says, since it's a lab experience, not to participate. By the way, how many of you typically do participate in that anonymous feedback for other applications or other usage things? Do you typically like saying no, or are you saying like, yeah, I want to let them know? Typically no? Leave me alone? Never ask me again. Yeah, no, I don't want to participate. So I was jumping in there. Sorry. Okay. Step number 9, click close. And so now we're down sort of through these steps. The next step is to download and install the updates. So I click download and install updates. If you're not connected to the internet or if you have an issue, it's not going to work, obviously. But during break, we'll take a look at it. It's asking us to, and I have no idea how long this is going to take. This might be your homework. 331 megabytes. Yeah, about 20 people doing it? You know what? Actually, I'm not going to do that right now. I am going to skip this for now. And this will be part of your homework. You can do this during lab time. There'll be plenty of lab time, by the way, today. We're going to get through stuff pretty quickly. And so you can do it during lab time and or at home. Some of you would have better network connections at home than you do at school. But this is something that you can do, go through the experience. Windows updating probably isn't new to any of you. So this isn't like, oh, let's review this in class because I'm not sure how it works. You've probably seen it way too often, more often than you ever desire. So we're not going to do the Windows update. Going on down, we add roles and features in future classes. That is what this class is all about, is roles and features of the server. So that is our exercises through page 51. It says, expanding your network, many businesses start with a single server and eventually find reasons to install a second and third and even more servers. If your network requires 2 or more servers, you're almost certainly running in a domain environment, which may have like triggered something you heard in the guy speaking at you in the lab sims. Domains and forests, and we'll be going through all that. So if you're completely lost, that's okay. That's what we're covering in the chapter. Can I swing over? Sure. Moving along, though, it does talk the rest of that section. So, do kind of read through that section if you get a chance. Expanding your network. It's going to grow. Some reasons you might need to add additional servers, company growth, excessive load. You want to isolate applications. You don't want all your applications on, all your eggs in one basket. You want to separate them and put, different services on different servers. By the way, that's where virtualization really comes in. So you can run isolated applications on isolated servers, but not have 20 boxes. You can still put it on a single box. And then even additional offices. Upgrading to Windows Server 2008, it goes through the upgrade process, typically not done, except in very rare or isolated situations. If people are putting servers in, they're putting in new hardware, new operating system, and then migrating over to it. I do want to get this started here. Server Core on page 53, just so we can get this installation started and then give you a break again during the major part of the install. As you learned in Chapter 1, which we didn't cover, but you did read, the Server Core installation option provides a minimal server environment designed for running specific server roles. Did you get that when you read through there? Kind of get that concept? You saw some pictures probably? Okay. Server Core's reduced code base minimizes the operating system vulnerabilities and lessens maintenance and management tasks. It lessens the management tasks, but makes them much more difficult. Instead of clicking on time zone, you have to actually type out a whole command line to change the time zone. But that's fun. That's why we're in IT. The Windows Server installation and post-installation is identical, except, again, we're doing command line steps instead of clicking on the menus. Yes? For today, typically we're not going to be running the servers at the same time. In fact, we can be shutting down this server. We'll be done with this for right now. So we can close the initial configuration tasks. And then it brings up Server Manager, which we can close as well. And then we go to Start, the little arrow over to the right, and then we can shut down. Now, Windows says you can't shut down unless you have a reason to, and it better be a good reason. Otherwise, I'm not going to shut it down. Either that or just hit the space bar and then click OK. Now, they want to know why. Part of logging, they just want people shutting down a server. Why'd you do this? And normally you would be typing this in because I'm done with it. I finished with what I want to do today, or I want to upgrade memory, or the system was running slow and I want to reboot. So there's to say this, any character is fine though. You just have to type something. So hopefully your server shuts down in a quick fashion. I've known that VMs have known to like hang for 5-10 minutes. Control-Alt-Enter. Control-Alt-Enter is the full screen command. So you good? Okay, let's do another one since that was so much fun. I go up to File. Oh, it's not, okay, okay. I'll wait for you to shut down. As you can see, as I stutter, the Server Core is going to be identical to the regular one as far as the initial steps go. So let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. I do it this way. I go up to File, New Virtual Machine. And again, I'm using custom. All that's going to do is, it lets me see more of the options, even though I don't change them. I just like seeing what's going on. And I click Next. I'm keeping VMware Workstation 9. And again, I will install the operating system later. Click Next. I'm still running Windows Server 2008. There isn't a different one for Core because the operating system really is still Windows Server 2008. There is no difference as far as the hardware is concerned. And I click Next. Okay, my Windows Server 2008, I'm going to label it Windows Server 2008 Core. And when I work with my directory over here, I want to go to my D drive. I go under Virtual Machines. And then I go underneath my Server1 class. So instead of calling it Windows Server 2008-1, I'm going to make a new folder under my Server1 folder. and I'll be calling it Windows Server 2008 Core. And we're only making one of these for the semester, so we don't have to label them 1 and 2 or 3 or whatever. Unless you just want to make more in the future, you certainly can. And you click OK. So double check your namings, Windows Server 2008 Core and Windows Server 2008 Core. Go ahead and click Next. One processor still, keeping it at a gig of RAM. I'm still doing natting because I want it to be in my private network. And the I/O controller, LSI logic, create a new virtual disk. I'm just clicking Next on all these. I'm not changing anything. It recommends SCSI again, and it recommends 40 gigs. I am personally going to be changing this one. If you want to keep it as a single file, again, you can, or multiple files. This has no impact whatsoever. It's just a pure preference, personal preference. And then click Next. Here's my virtual disk file, and then I'm done setting up the hardware. So I just went to the store and I bought the stuff and I put it together. I got a case, I got a processor, some memory, and a hard drive. Now I'm ready to install the operating system. The first thing I want to do is insert the CD into the CD-ROM drive. That's by clicking on the CD-ROM drive. It ejects the tray, and then I'm going to insert the ISO image, the same ISO image I used before. Windows Server 2008. So everything's identical up to this point. Nothing at all has changed other than the name. I do want to power this on. So I'm booting to the CD or the DVD with this hardware. It's going to attempt to load the Windows files. And we wait, and we get the exact same screen. And English and US is fine, so I click Next. And we install now. Again, we're going to skip the product key. If you have one, use it if you want. Because I don't have a product key, I don't want to automatically activate it. And I click Next. It asks you again, do you want to activate or enter your product key? No, I do not. And wait a second. Now we have the same list as before, which Windows versions, with the full installs, full enterprise is what we did before. Now we want to do the enterprise again, except Server Core. So this is the first change that we have. So Server 2008 Enterprise, but making sure you choose Server Core installation. I click I have, select the edition that I've purchased, and I click Next. Since I read the license terms last time I installed, I can click Accept. And now, again, the same thing, upgrade or a clean install. There's nothing to upgrade, so I'm going to only have the option for a clean install. I'm doing this onto the hard drive, the only hard drive that I have. I click Next. And it starts the copying, expanding, installing the features, installing the updates, and then completing the installation. It, too, at the end is going to reboot and then come back to the login screen. That is going to be different. Please don't do anything at that point. Just wait, and we'll walk through this together. So, a little over time on your break. Sorry about that, but this would be a good time to take a break. Okay, continuing on. Once we get back to this screen, Control-Alt-Delete to log on again. So that does look the same. It's like, oh, I thought it would be different. There is some graphical aspects to it. Control-Alt-Insert again. And it brings up to this login screen. A little bit different. I want to click on Other User. And it does create an administrator account, but doesn't bring up the box automatically. So I have to type in administrator. And we never entered a password, or we weren't able to yet. So there is none. So we just can click the arrow to log on the first time. Now it comes up and says the user's password must be changed before logging on. And this is where we can click OK. And we will use the same password as we did before to keep things very consistent. A capital PASSWORD 01. Capital PASSWORD 01. Nice for the login again. Your password's been changed, and I click OK. Applying users and preparing your desktop, and not much of a desktop it is. For a lot of nothing. And it's obviously only the first time through that this is doing it. For preparing it in the future, it's significantly faster. Okay, moving along. This is all the screen that you get. Yeah, for that, that's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing behind it. You know, it's not like hitting or hiding anything, or there's no start button in the corner. And this is a little interesting because when I reach these prompts, what are we used to? What do we do? Like, what are we apt to do? Close it, right? Okay, I'm done with this. Let me see what's left. There is nothing left. That's it. So just be aware of that. It happens all the time. People forget. They click on it. To get back into it, I'm doing Control-Alt-Insert, which is the same as Control-Alt-Delete. In fact, that's what we're doing is Control-Alt-Delete. And we are going to the Task Manager. And we want to run a new task, a little new task in the corner. And that task is CMD, so the command prompt. And it brings it back. And that's how you get it back. Another way to get out of here, which people just, if they've been used to using command like in Windows, another way is typing exit, and then it's like, oh, I just did it again. Again, Control-Alt-Insert, and then going to Task Manager, and then New Task, and then CMD. Performance, physical memory, 230 megabytes. You can run under applications, under tasks, you can run additional ones. So you can end up with multiple command line interfaces. If you're doing something in one directory, say, I do a change directory to the root. I can, do something else in a different directory. I can do something else in a different directory, have different commands going back and forth. So you can have multiple sessions open. Right, which is very easy actually in command prompt because your prompt is where you're working, and it's always there. So in some aspects, it's easier to work with command prompt than just applications because you never know quite where you are. Here's telling you where you are. But we're just going to keep one window open. I'm just going to, you know what, I never did this. I didn't try this. I'm going to try to install VMware Tools. VMware Tools. I should work the same. I'm just wondering without a interface how that's going to work, because you really don't get the same windows. Yeah, I probably should have gotten something by now, though. What's that? Yeah, it should probably end up installing like a D drive or something, directory. Yeah. All that VMware Tools really does is mount a virtual disk. The same thing in Linux. If you're running with Linux this at all, it ends up mounting a virtual drive. So yeah, go ahead and do it that way. So it mounts a virtual drive called D, and then you can run the setup from there. It doesn't happen automatically. Typical install, click next, install. When you do run some of these commands, though, they do come up with their own graphical windows on occasion. So there are some command line applications, like later on when we work with server management, you can end up running the graphical interface for that. We'll be doing a lot of things just today in the command line, though, running out the full commands. And now it makes my screen look better. It optimizes my processor for a virtual machine and everything. So again, I'm going to click note this second. Well, I'll keep that there. What I did was I went up to VM. I clicked on Install VMware Tools, and it didn't look like it did anything, but it mounted a virtual CD-ROM, which is your D drive. At your command prompt, type in D:, and that's where you get the actual virtual drive that VMware Tools installed, and just run setup.exe. The version of Windows 2008 Server that I gave you is 32-bit. If it was a 64-bit, you'd probably want to run the setup64.exe, but this one is not 64-bit. And when you're done, click Reboot. I certainly can. Oh, did it? For him it did? So you went up to VM, and you clicked on Install VMware Tools. Did you do that first or not? When it restarts, it comes up as administrator. And now that you do have a password, make sure you type in as the password, capital PASSWORD 01. And again, it brings you back to the command prompt. Who's not at this point yet? Okay, I'll wait. Okay, where are we? Step 2, restoring the command 2.9 on page 56. Set the date and time. Obviously, before we just clicked the little button that brought up the Windows change the time zone or whatever, that's not nearly as fun as typing in control time date.cpl. Isn't that much more fun than clicking a little button that says the time? It brings you the exact same thing. So, like I said, we do have windows and we can interact with things. It's how we launch them. We don't have buttons or links to launch things. We have to type these commands in separately. Now, once we're in here, this is the exact same thing as we had before. So I do want to change my time zone first. It is set to Pacific time. And I want to change that to US and Canada Central Time. My date and time looks fine. It's January 24th at 10:30. It looks fine. If I could change it if I wanted to. But I'm going to click OK. Now, setting the IP address is a little bit different. We're not going to be using the configuration that, the little pop-up that's going to come up. We will be using other commands to changing our IP addresses. It's a little bit more tricky, so try to take notes and follow in the book, highlight the book or whatever. But we're going to be working with, changing our IP address. To see what we have right now, I'm going to be using the IP config /all. And it's showing you that I am getting, let's see here, DHCP enabled, yes. So I'm getting an address of 192.168.118.134. Now that's a DHCP enabled address. It will be different next time I log in, most likely, and we want to be changing that to a static address. Before you can run commands to set the IP address information, you need some information about your network interfaces. So in order to, like I said, when you run a command, it's going to say, hey, I want to manipulate this interface. We don't know what interfaces we have. So we want to show what interfaces we have by using the net show command, which is net sh. And I want to show interface ones that are using IP version 4. And then what do I want to do with that searching? I want to show the interfaces. So this is right out of the book, step number 3, activity 2-10, bottom of page 56, NetSH interface IP version 4, show interfaces. And I have 2 of them. Number 1 is the loopback, and number 2 is the actual local area connection. So this will be matching what the book has, and most often this will be the case. If we're working with a real server, and we talked about multiple NICs though, just be aware that you would have more interfaces and you would have to configure each interface separately. So note the number of the IDX column for the local area network. Theirs shows 2 and ours shows 2. And like I said, in most cases, it will be 2. Yes? Yours is 3? Anybody else have a 3? What would you have? Does you have 1, 2, and 3, or just 1 and 3? 3 and 1. My IDX is 3 for the local area connection, and it's 1 for the loopback. Really? I've only seen 2. But okay, good thing we showed them. That's why we do it, to see what it is. Does anyone else have an IDX of 3 for local area network? Just the 2 of you. Okay. Doesn't matter. As long as you know what your number is, the next command is going to just use that command. This is a long one. Spelling does count. It doesn't have spell check. We do need to change our IP address by doing the net show or net shell and interface IP version 4. And we're setting the address name equals. Now, whatever you put in quotes here, I'm putting 2, is your interface. So those had 3, make sure you put 3 in there. Source equals static address equals. Now this is where, again, we're following our naming convention. So I'm going to be using 190 numlock. Let's start this all over again. I keep forgetting that it turns off numlock. Okay, interface, netshell interface, IP version 4, address name equals 2, source equals static, address equals 192. I did numlock. It's not doing numlock. I don't get good at this. You think I'd why did my numlock go off and on? Okay, netshell. I'll get this. Netshell interface IP version 4. No, set. Address name equals 2. So that's the interface you're working with is number 2. The source is now going to be static. The address is going to equal 192.168. Now again, this is your IP address, so 118. The book tells you to use 100. We're not using 100. Ours is 118. And then it says 1XX. Your XX is 10, so make sure you type 110. So 192.168.118.110. The mask is going to equal, it is going to be the same, 255.255.255.0. And then our gateway, look at your notes for your gateway. It is 192.168.118.2. Now again, write those someplace in your notes. Those are standard configuration things. Your default gateway and subnet mask never change. When you hit enter, it should run it. It should do it, I hope. Mask is not a valid argument, MSK. Oh, I missed the A. Okay. That's okay. I can up arrow, and I can arrow over and add mask. And this is what should happen. It should just come back to a blank, just a command line. No news is good news. So if something shows up, that means you typed something wrong. In my case, I missed the letter A. But if you get nothing, that's good. To confirm that then, go ahead and run your ipconfig/all, and you should see that your IP address has changed. You have an issue. Yes, if you just type in net sh, that's getting you into the net shell. If you get stuck in there, it's Control-C to get out of there. If you do the net shell and the whole command, that does the command. But if you do just net sh by itself, it goes into the shell environment. And to get out is Control-C. Change the font. Edit. Properties. Font. What I did for my screen is change the font. It is a pretty small font otherwise. You can increase it. By the little upper left-hand corner, there's the black C, like the icon. If you click on there, you actually do get a menu. If you go into Properties, and you can click on the Font tab up on top, and I just chose 12 by 16. So 12 screen pixels wide and 16 screen pixels high. If you want to make it smaller, you can. If you want to make it even bigger yet, you can. I think 12 by 16 looks good on my screen, though. You can change the colors, too. But again, if you're looking for the IP address information, I'm highlighting in here. Your IP address should be 192.168.118.110. Your subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and then 192.168.118.2. In fact, let me just hit the up arrow key. It's the right spelling. This is what you should be typing down here. So NetSH interface IP version 4. I want to set the address for the device number 2. I want it to be a static address. I want the address to equal 192.168.118.110. And yes, I know that we're all the same, but we're all on different networks. That's okay. The mask, spelled out mask, is 255.255.255.0. And then we type in the gateway, and everybody has the same gateway, 192.168.118.2. I put my font to, I think, 12 by 16. Properties font, yeah, 12 by 16. Four by 6 is pretty cool. You can fit a lot of it then. You can impress all your friends or something. As you get older, the larger fonts are nicer. Especially when you're working on here, this is the only thing you're working with is this interface. Nothing happens? You don't get a command prompt back?
Oh, I get a command prompt back, but like I don't get all the updates like you do. Like it went through and changed everything, so I type in everything and everything can just be updated.
Did you do an IP config? And nothing changed. If I hit enter here, it doesn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
It just goes back.
Okay, when you hit something, it popped up that first time, which I thought that's okay.
Oh, it popped up because it was wrong. Okay. I had an error, and so it said, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, pretty much same here.
So that's why I said no news is good news. You don't want to see anything on the screen. It should come back to a blank screen. If something comes up, that means you did something wrong.
I was worried.
No. Okay, continue on the next step. Yes, question. How did I clear it? I did a CLS, clear screen. That's a DOS command. Clear is not a recognized command. CLS, clear screen, is an old DOS command, been around since the invention of the personal computer. So was I. Okay, the next command, it's another net shell command, netsh. Again, I want to change the interface. So netsh interface, IP version 4, DNS server, name equals to, so that's the same. So I want to change, what did I say add? I forgot to add. IP version 4, I want to add a DNS server. Name, again, use your IDX number. So a couple people who had 3 for the local area network, make sure you choose 3. And then the address of that DNS server is going to equal 192.168.118.2. And what order do you want that to be in? I want this to be my primary DNS. So it's going to be the index or my position number 1 and hit enter. And again, no news is good news. You already have 192.168.118.2 on the list? Did you choose the add? Because this is just going to add another one. So even if there's something in the list, this is just going to add to the list of DNS servers. So if I do an ipconfig/all for my DNS servers, it should show this. You have 192.168.118.2. And if you do it again, it's going to say I already have that one. Did you do it twice? Okay.
Like when I did it before with the 3, I must have did that a second time too, thinking I was supposed to be getting something back.
And this is what you have. And just a real quick checking on this, and then I'll help the people with the various issues. We'll take a break then and help people, is making sure this all works by pinging something. Let's see if DNS and our default gateway works by pinging Google. And I get a reply, which means my default gateway works and my DNS works. Type what you're supposed to type in again. Yeah, this is step number 6 on page 57. The only thing we're changing is the actual address. Instead of 100.200, we're putting in 118.2. Okay, let's take a break here, and this would be a good time to fix IP addresses and configurations and getting everybody caught up. As long as it takes to fix everybody, break. Okay, moving along. Everybody seems to be connecting and pinging, which is a good thing. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, if you waited long enough like I did, your computer automatically locks. On Control-Alt-Delete to unlock this computer, which is going to be Control-Alt-Insert. And again, your password to get back in. Hopefully you're all able to ping and connect, having some issues in Fusion yet, and hopefully have that resolved. Moving on to the next activity on page 53. No, that's not right. Wrong page. I skipped over there. 57, configuring the server core firewall to ping. To use 2 virtual machines instead of a partner computer for this activity, see the instructions in Appendix C. We're not going to do that. We're not going to ping each other yet, but we do want to enable it so we can ping in the future. So when we do get a client running, that we can ping it. And so we're just going to go through these steps anyway. If we do ipconfig, we can see the static information, which we've already done. And it's asking us to ping it. And of course, we're not going to get a response because there's a firewall on. To change the firewall settings is what we're doing on this page, page 58, step number 5. To change the firewall settings so that the echo request packets are permitted through the firewall, type netsh for netshell firewall, set ICMP setting to value 8. Is this like so intuitive? You probably, I probably didn't have to tell you this. You probably could have figured that out, that that's how you turn off the firewall in Windows, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know how these commands get created, but these are the steps. Hit enter, and it actually tells you okay. Okay. Which is not usually the case. Usually no news is good news. And then later on, when we try to ping it, we'll be able to. So we're only allowing ICMP, which ping is part of, to be active or allowed through the firewall. So we haven't just removed the firewall. Often that's what I end up doing, just when I'm testing. It's just like, oh, I want to test this. Oh, just turn off the firewall. Well, that's not a good idea. The best way is to turn on and off individual or allow or deny specific services like ICMP, and not turning it on and off. This just does this one setting. So later on, when we get a chance to have multiple clients and things, we'll be able to ping it. Okay, going down that list, if you remember that initial list of, okay, the time zone, and then, you know, the IP addresses and all that kind of stuff, we also have a computer name on that list. And we're going to be doing it here as well through command line. If we type in host name, it tells us our current computer's name is that win-goofy name. Not going to be very useful to anybody trying to find our computer. It's going to look just like any other Windows computer on the network. We want to distinguish this as a server, and specifically even as a server core. To do that, we're using the netdom command, and we're going to use the parameter of rename computer. And now we have to type in the existing computer name. So, and spelling counts. 8L12JXVRRD2, and that's the old name. And now you want to put the new name on there. So you actually type in /new name, colon, and type in exactly that, server core, and then it says server core XX. Our XX is always going to be 10, so it's server core 10. And we hit enter. I'm sorry? The operation will rename this computer. Certain services, such as certificate authority, rely on a fixed machine name. If any services of this type are running, then the computer name would have adverse impact. They're not. We just built this. Nothing is running on it. We haven't activated anything. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes, and then enter. So the command was completed successfully. To double check, I can type in host name, and I have to restart? I do have to restart. I missed that step, sorry. Shut down, and again, a very intuitive thing, /R. You can also use dashes, -R, or /T or -T. And T is time. When am I going to do this? You can set it to 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or 0 seconds. And the R means restart. You hit the S, /S to shut down, R to restart. The command is in step 4, page 58. Shutdown, space /R, space /T, space 0. No. So you did the syntax wrong? You're typing exactly what it says in the book. netdom. Okay. I'll log back in. The desktop still takes a long time to prepare. No. No. Host names. Computer names are very tied to the computer, like very tied to the computer. Everything's based on it. DNS, DHCP, all that stuff is based on that computer name. That name, is, like you saw, it's like a big deal to change it. And if you ever changed it later on, like, boy, 5 years into this, after all these stuff are put on there, I just had to change it, it's going to have an adverse effect. That's why, just like on the server install with the graphical user interface, changing the computer name was what, like second, third in the list? It's done as soon as you create the server, you set that name, and then that name is pretty much set in stone for life of that server. If you want a different name, you actually be better off building a new server and then migrating to it to keep that machine the name. So. Oh, you could look at my screen maybe and type in my number. Yes. After restarting, I log back in. I type in host name, and I do get server core 10. And that's what you should get. How many have you not gotten this yet? Everybody has Server Core 10? Jamie, you have Server Core 10? The last step that we're really doing is when we talked about the computer name, when we did it in the graphical world, we changed the computer name and the not the domain, work group at the same time. As we're talking about in the book, number 6 in activity 212, the bottom page 58. Oddly enough, changing the workgroup name involves using a different type of command called Windows Management Instruction Command Line, Instrumentation Command Line. There's a quiz on that next week of all these different acronyms, by the way. Each command is preceded with WMIC, the WMIC command. Of course, that's how we change workgroups, right? We just do what we're told. So they tell us to type that in, we type it in. WMIC. Computer system, all one word, where name equals, and now you have to type in your server name. Then it should be Server Core 10. If you're not sure, just look right above where you had host name. Call join domain or workgroup, domain or workgroup name. So I'm going to join the work group called, and using the same name, adconfig for Active Directory config class. And hit enter. And invalid alias verb. What did I do wrong? WMIC computer system where name equals server core. Call join domain or workgroup. What did I spell wrong? Domain. Ah. Oops. Domain. I had the A and the M mixed up. Okay. D-O-M. Executing. You use the same command if you're joining the domain as well. So if it's a work group, it just joins it. It's just like, here's a work group, I'm going to join the work group, but it's going to look for the domains first. So it actually scans the network looking for a domain. So if the domain exists, then it's going to ask you to authenticate to the domain, asking for the administrator password, username and password to join the domain. Work groups, you don't need to authenticate to join. Domains, you do. I'm sorry? Correct. Domains have to be set up beforehand. Yeah, you definitely have to have a domain before you can join it. And if you can't find one, it's going to assume it's a work group and then be joining the work group. Correct. Correct. Now let's see. Method execution parameters. Let's see. The Windows workgroup name isn't displayed by using the ipconfig. To display it, use the nbstat-n. nbstat. nbtstat. Stat-n. There we go. adconfig class, which is considered a group. And then if you were joining command, there would be another command then, in addition to that, of actually joining the domain then. If it says invalid alias, that means you typed something wrong. In my case, I typed domain or work group wrong. Isn't this fun? The direction that Windows Server is going? Fortunately, we're going to be, this is sort of the hardcore stuff. You have to be introduced to it. By the way, this is the direction that Windows is going. Future server editions are doing more and more PowerShell and command line interfaces. We still have all of our tools to connect to it to administer it. We'll be spending most of our time there. But just like any system, you're going to have to understand that the hardcore stuff does exist. If I need to change an IP address on a server and I can't access it through a remote system, I need to be able to know how to do it. I need to be able to change a machine name locally in the system when I have it. And again, the advantages of the server core are that you don't have that huge overhead. There is no graphical user interface, and it's more secure as well. All those things that are running on Windows Server 2008 all have services, are all running in the background, are taking resources, and have connections to the firewall. Server core completely shut down and locked down. If you want to do anything, you have to enable it, everything, every little thing. So it is much more secure and much more resource friendly. The last thing we want to talk about in here is enabling the automatic updates. And again, it's going to be done through the command line. To enable automatic updates to keep your system secure and up to date with patches, you'll be working the server core system that you're unfamiliar with, so you want to verify the automatic updates are enabled, and if not, to enable them. So we logged in the server as administrator, which we already have, and then if necessary, we want to change directories to the Windows System 32 directory. CD Windows System 32. Make sure you do CD space / Windows / System 32. I'm sorry? I delete this? No, oh yeah, don't delete System 32. Look at all those files in there. That's got to be wasting disk space. Let's delete something. Yes. You can, in fact, use either one. It's a migration between the traditional DOS environment to the newer server environment. PowerShell, does PowerShell use either as well right now? But it's a migration. So there are places that you can interchange them. Like I just did the CD space / Windows, and then CD, / Windows, Windows. Oh, let me do them both ways. System 32. I can use them interchangeably. Again, the DOS way is backslash. The newer way is the / because that's more of the Unix mainframe era type thing is the /. Okay, so I'm in the Windows System 32 directory. To view the current status of automatic updates, I'm doing the CS script. And the reason we changed the System 32 directory is because this is where that script is located. So C script, I should say. C script. SCREG, SCReg, edit. So it's looking at the registry, WSF / automatic updates, and then I'm verifying. What did I spell wrong? CS script. Did I spell that right? Oh, no, I didn't. I did miss the C. CS script. I'm sorry? It's I don't know. Good question. You're basically running regedit and going out and looking at the value of that, the automatic updates value, and you're verifying it is what you're doing. Why the extension WSF? Windows system file? I don't know. Windows script? Oh, that would make sense. It's like a batch file. It's a scripting file. So it's going to go out and look for different things. It's going to do a search in this case. So it's a Windows scripting file. I probably should have known that. So right now it's telling me that auto updates are not even set. There is no value for them. To enable the automatic updates, I changed the /v at the end to a 4. So I'm running the same script, that regedit script, and I'm changing automatic updates to value 4. The value 4 in this command specifies enabling automatic updates and having available updates downloaded and installed automatically at 3 a.m. So in this case, it's actually going to install them automatically every day. And the registry has been updated. To disable the automatic script, I changed the value from 4 to 1. And 1 disables that. Now this is a service, and you're just changing the settings. Settings don't always take effect until that service gets restarted. So let me put it back on 4. So I'm changing the value in the registry, and now I need to actually stop the update service. So I'm going to use the command net stop WUA, so Windows up automatic update service. So I'm going to stop the service. And then I just start the service. After it's done stopping. And we'll just wait for it to stop. By the way, most of the classes will not be working with Server Core. We'll be using the regular version. But again, you just need to know that these exist and how to do it. There are a couple chapters later on, especially the second half of the semester, which we'll be doing an activity on the regular server and then doing the same activity in the Server Core to sort of, again, compare. This eventually stopped, and I want to start it back up again. When it starts up again, oh, service cannot be stopped. Let me try it again. The requested pause, continue, stop is not valid for the service. Okay, so it must be stopped. Let me try to start. It's already been started. You know another way to do this is to do a shutdown. Do you ever get services that just get stuck? You can't stop them or restart them. When you restart the server, they obviously all restart, and they pick up all the new settings. So if the registry got changed to the version setting 4 when it restarts. The first part of restarting doesn't take too long. It's the desktop part. Control-Alt-Insert. I'm not going to do the next step, step 5, where it talks about forcing the updates immediately. That will be another lab activity or a home activity that you can do. I'm sorry? Step number 5, it says to check for updates immediately. You do the WUA, so the Windows Update, Auto Update, CLT. What does that stand for? Client? Detect now. No updates are available? Because they're definitely, that's extremely hard to believe. What's that? Yeah, and it's the same version. It's the exact same version of the software. That's all. It's all right. Yeah, it's the operating system that gets the updates. The GUI itself just doesn't. I'm just gonna try that one. So WAUCLT detect now. WMQFE. I bet you the detect now is not showing anything. That, I bet, is going out and doing it all in the background without showing you a status. Actually, I don't know. I do not know Core well, by the way. It's all brand new in Server 2008. So I'm going to let you do that. You can start it up at home, let it run, let it do its thing, and see if it's doing anything in the background. I guess we can see if the processors are doing anything. Yeah, my network is definitely active. So it's going on looking. So it doesn't tell you a whole lot that way. /S/T0. I'm going to shut down my server core. So right now I have two servers. I have Windows Server 2008 #1, and I have Windows Server 2008 Core. At this point, it would be an excellent point to be making a snapshot. We haven't done anything with them yet, other than giving them a machine name, giving them part of the work group, putting their time zone on. So those are basic configuration things. So I'm choosing a Windows Server 2008-1, and I'm going to VM, snapshot, take a snapshot, and I'll call it the base image. I might even put password equals password, and maybe an IP address of 192.168.18. Now I didn't mark this down. What is this one? 210. Yep, that's what it is. 210. And I take the snapshot. I go to server core. I go to VM, snapshot, take the snapshot. Again, call it base image. Password equals password. And IP is 192.168.118. And was this 110 or 210? 110. And take the snapshot. So now as we do other things in a class, as we add services and features and functions or make other settings and changes, we can always come back to this base install, making sure it has the right IP address, has the right subnet mask, right DNS settings, right computer name and everything. So next week is Chapter 1, Introducing Windows Server 2008. So you've already installed it, you read the chapter already, you've done the review questions, so there's nothing new for you to do next week. Just be ready to talk about the things that are in the chapter. Please bring up questions because I'm going to go through it kind of briefly, and really I'm going to be concentrating on just the activities. So we're going to go through the activities together, look at this, look at that, but rely a lot on you to have read and to have come with questions. Questions or comments for today? Am I going to review the questions in Chapter 2? Do the review questions in Chapter 2? No, I'm not going to make you do the review questions in Chapter 2. Excellent question. I will be updating Angel since I did make this kind of significant change to reflect that. Hopefully, if not tonight, by tomorrow night. But again, there's nothing new for next week.